Coach, thank you so very much for joining us here on the show. I'm excited to talk to you again. You and I chatted once before after we both presented our virtual speeches for the CSAA convention. I think that was back in 2021 when unfortunately we can no longer be in person due to COVID, but I want to welcome you to the warm down pool.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I remember those conversations we had. A big fan of the CSCAA too, so glad we had a chance to speak a couple of years ago, and maybe we'll speak again someday.
I know that Sam Barney, who's our executive director, is always looking for great speakers. You had a wonderful speech. I'm going to see if it's still available online. If I can, I'm going to link it into our social media so people get a chance to listen to it. But the question that obviously a lot of people who are going to be listening to the show is, what is the Merchant Marine Academy? Because when we think of service academies, we think Air Force, Navy, Army. Some people will think Coast Guard, but they don't realize there are 5 service academies. And there's one right there where you're at in Kings Point. So tell us about what the Merchant Marine Academy is.
Sure. Coach, that's probably the number one question that I get from recruits or that I have to answer consistently is basically, what do we do here? Why does this school exist? It's definitely not that well known. And that's always something that through the recruiting process that we're trying to overcome, is helping people understand kind of what we do here and kind of all the options that you have upon graduation. But to keep it real simple, the Merchant Marine Academy is a federal service academy, as you mentioned. It's kind of like the one that's not as well known, but once people come and learn about it and they come to visit, they realize what a good school this is. And actually, it's one of I think is the best service academy that we have, which I'll hopefully explain to you why in a few minutes. But the fundamental principle of kind of what we do here is we exist to help the United States in its economic interest and its defense interest to pay up the country, right? Through training leaders to be officers, either in the armed services or in as a merchant marine, in the shipping and maritime industry. So there's so many things that go into that, though. As far as kind of really what we do, we are a maritime school. So we talk about maritime related activities. You're talking about shipping, sailing, ports, business, intermodal transportation. If something's made in another country, how does it get to your doorstep? And almost everything has come by ship at some point. Probably all the equipment that you have, your cell phones, your bananas, jeans, cars, a lot of that stuff comes by ship. And you need people to navigate those ships, or also be an engineer, making sure those ships are moving and running properly. So as far as the maritime related activity, that's more the economic interest of the U.S., okay? Which is really run through the maritime industry. Then you have the whole part, which is kind of the defense interest of the U.S. So the U.S. government does have its own vessels, its own maritime vessels, usually through what's called the Military Sealift Command. And what they do is they basically supply the U.S. Navy and other services with troops, gear, tanks, food, etc. And we have to man those ships. So a lot of people graduate from the Merchant Marine Academy will go in what's called the MSC, man those ships to better our defense. But also, the last option is when you graduate from the Merchant Marine Academy, you have an option to go active duty in any branch of the service that you want. Now, you do have to give back 5 years of your time in one of those areas. So, for example, this year, our graduating seniors, we have 2 going U.S. Navy Aviation. We have 1 female going into the United States Navy Engineering Corps. We have another gentleman graduating going U.S. Marine Corps flight program. We have someone going to the U.S. Coast Guard. But then that's probably about half. The other half of our team is going somewhere in the maritime industry, sailing on ships, working in the Gulf of Mexico, working shoreside as engineers or whatnot. So when it comes down to it, we're a maritime school first, and then kind of move into defense as well.
One of the things that always fascinated me about the Merchant Marine Academy and my research, and you mentioned, is like basically a third are going into Military Sealift Command, a third are going into active duty as commissioned officer in one of the armed services, and then the other third are going into the commercial shipping, shipbroking, logistics, marine engineering. I don't think people understand exactly how important the role of ship within the globalization of the world. Post-World War II, the United States pretty much said, we'll defend the global oceans to allow the trading routes to go, because piracy was still a thing. And it is to an extent. Obviously, we've seen movies on that, but having the cargo vessels, the shipping containers, those are generally commanded by individuals who have been through the Merchant Marine Academy, correct?
Yes.
So
we are the Federal Maritime School, and then there are a few other state maritime schools that, train people to be navigators and engineers as well. There's Maine Maritime, there's New York Maritime, it's actually across the water from where we were sitting in New York. The Great Lakes Maritime, Cal Maritime, and Texas has a maritime school, I believe at Texas A&M, and they're training people for the maritime industry. Most of the world, travels and sends goods through water. And we need people to navigate those waterways. And when you talk about, even as an engineer, making sure these ships run, I mean, these ships are monster ships that are, sometimes 2 to 3 football fields long with, $50 to $100 million worth of product on them. Could be oil, gas, grain, but also containers full of cars, cell phone pieces, jeans, and etc. And really need to have a strong maritime fleet to assist the U.S.
And it's also one of those things where, again, I had a friend who attended Annapolis, and he was majoring in political science because of where he wanted to go with his service upon finishing his 4 years in Annapolis. That doesn't happen at USMMA. You guys, my understanding, only have like 5 majors, whether it's marine transportation, marine logistics security, marine engineering, and some variety of those things. So you're bringing in individuals who have a very specific mindset of this is where I want to go. This is what I want to do. And it is, I'm not going to call it a trade school because that obviously would be undervaluing the education there to an extent, but you are going into a very specific area if you're a student at the the United States Merchant Marine Academy. And I think that is fantastic. I'm hoping you don't make people suffer through things like intro to art or music appreciation or anything like that. The students, when they get there, they're like, okay, we're diving you in. And obviously things like calculus and dealing in the engineering side is critical. But yeah, I don't think it's a typical liberal arts education. Tell me a little bit about, if I'm a student and I'm coming in to be a midshipman at the Merchant Marine Academy, what am I looking at in terms of an academic curriculum?
Sure. That's another question I get asked a lot and have to help people understand kind of what we do here. Yes, half our school is in the engineering programs, right? There's 3 different majors in there. But they're getting a what I believe is one of the best engineering educations that you can find. And I can talk a little about that in a little while on why. So half the school is about engineers and doing all different kinds of engineering majors. The other half is, as you mentioned, marine transportation. Well, the maritime navigation side, so there's kind of 2 sides. One is engineering, and then one is like you call it deck or navigation. So you have to be able to drive ships using, the stars, using land points and so forth. So you take courses in that. However, within those, you could basically almost get like a business undergrad per se in the marine transportation. You take your navigation courses, then you also can take economics, business, management, accounting, and all the courses that you would do in a business degree, which I have. And then there's some other majors in there as well, like logistics and security and so forth, which are all great, educational pieces and great majors to do. You mentioned that most people come in with a specific mindset. I don't believe that's actually the case. Some come in with the mindset of this is what I want to do. Most people come with the mindset of this is an outstanding academic institution that has a tremendous amount of options upon graduation. I'm going to go, I'm going to learn, I'm going to experience, I'm going to be pushed academically, regimentally. You're going to see the world while you're here. And then when you are a junior, senior at the academy, then you start figuring out what you really like and what you really don't like. So you can kind of pursue different options as a career. I've been here long enough to know that people think they're coming in for one reason and they do something completely different in all different ways, because you're going to experience so much stuff. Some of it you're going to love. Like, that was really awesome. And some stuff you could be like, I'm not sure that that's for me. But something you may like, I may not like, right? But that's okay. So hopefully you're going to make decisions on what you want to do in your career based on education and experience, and then kind of choose what you want to do from there. Because most people come in here and change their mind on what they want to do.
Wow. For me, just looking at the research behind it, I would think I'm going into marine engineering, or I'm going into marine navigation, transportation, or logistics and security. But I'm glad to hear I'm glad to hear that they're just like normal college students of, I'm going to be an engineer. And then they take structural physics for the very first time and went, I'm going into logistics because.
Well, your first semester, you're going to have an intro to engineering class, an intro to navigation class, and it just kind of gets the ball rolling. And people say, you know what? I thought I wanted to be an engineer. I actually want to do this. Or some people were like, there's no way they want to be an engineer, but all of a sudden they took that course, like, you know what? I think I should do it. And then they go that route. And they graduate and they go on and have, great careers, with their engineering background.
One thing about of the 5 service academies, the one that I have found it to be the most applicable to a career path. Not to say that you go to Navy or Army or Air Force or Coast Guard and you can't make those careers, just like in the Merchant Marine Academy, but these have real world applications outside of it. There's always going to be shipping. There's no question about that. And honestly, even more so now with the deglobalization we're seeing of the U.S. is not patrolling the open oceans as much, it's going to be even more important that we're getting qualified people in there to make sure that our goods and our shipments and the things that we're trying to bring into our country or ship out to other countries is transported safely and securely. And I think that's something that is completely understated in our understanding of geopolitics. That being said, I know nothing about geopolitics. I follow a guy on social media and in YouTube, and that's how I know about how the shipping trade worked. And that's really one of the reasons why I wanted to talk with you a little bit more about what the Merchant Marine Academy and its graduates contribute to that, because I became very fascinated by the situations that are going on globally. And everybody talks about the size of the Chinese Navy, but also the fact that they can't really leave 300 miles from shore. But yet we have our Navy as well as our shipping routes that we secure. Not that the Air Force is probably second, because if you're a pilot in the Air Force, you can translate that to commercial flying. Understanding transporting goods, so much cheaper to ship them over waterways than it is over land or through the air. And that's, as a country with 2 coastlines, it makes us uniquely qualified to do so. And I think that's part of the reason why we are the superpower that we are. Now we're done with the politics side. Okay, let's talk swimming. I got a feeling we could have this go on forever on that. But you came from Villanova, you swam at the University of Connecticut, your transition from Villanova to the Merchant Marine Academy. Talk me through that, because one of the things that I think is interesting is you carry the title of commander, which means you have been commissioned, I would assume then, through the Merchant Marine Academy. But talk to me about your transition of coaching at Villanova and at the Division I level to coming to the Merchant Marine Academy.
Yeah, thanks for that question is great. I mean, I tell this to recruits on kind of how I got here. I think it's really important for them to understand where I came from and how I got here and why I've stayed so long, which is another part of the equation. So I did swim at the University of Connecticut, loved my time there. I actually had a business undergrad degree. I was actually going to go into business in potentially finance or whatnot. But then in the spring of my senior year, I decided to maybe give coaching a try. I called up all the club teams in South Jersey, Philadelphia. I called up all the colleges and said, is there any opening? My foot in the door. And at the time, Ed Barch, the head coach of Villanova, he was the head coach basically of both programs. There was a couple of assistants and a couple of interns. I got an intern job, making $12,000 a year, coming out of college. But it was a fantastic year coaching at Villanova, because one, it was back then it was the big East. But you had West Virginia, Miami, and it was Notre Dame. It was probably 13, 14, a lot of them big time schools. So I really enjoyed the Big East Conference. Then I worked at Villanova. They were also excellent at the time. They had women that went to trials and Olympians and senior nationals and stuff. And I was still in the Big East, so I still saw a lot of people I swam against, swam with. So I did that for a couple of years. I kind of moved myself up to like the head assistant coach that was there. I basically came out to Long Island to Division I nationals with the head coach and a couple of female swimmers for the nationals. And before the meet started, we had a coaches meeting. And the head of the NCAA rules back then was a person named Sue Peterson-Lubo, who was the AD here for about 20 years. And before that was a swim coach. So she mentioned she had a job opened up at the Merchant Marine Academy. Of course, I've never heard of it, even though I'm from, only a couple hours from here. And I didn't want to go anywhere. I'm living with my friends from high school in Philadelphia. I'm coaching big time swimming. I loved everything I was doing. And the head coach, Rick Simpson at the time, reached over and kind of gave me a little nudge of like, listen, Sean, you need to look into this. At first I was disappointed because I really wanted to stay at Villanova. So I did the research, I looked around, came to a couple of interviews, and I realized this is actually a really unique place. And I think maybe I should do it. So I went through that whole process. I took the job, and my goal was only to coach it for about 3 to 4 years, maybe 5 years max, just get some head coaching experience. And the transition from Villanova to here was definitely different in the sense of I was gung ho and ready to go with what I thought we were able to do. But then realizing that in my first season that the midshipmen here at the Merchant Marine Academy are super, super busy. They got regimental responsibilities. They're up late. They're not sleeping a lot. Freshmen can't take a nap during the day. I mean, so I had to basically adjust with the help of the swimmers coach. We got to figure out a new system here. And we kind of revamped kind of our thought process. So it was definitely a transition for sure for what I was used to what we're doing. However, the dedication of the athletes are just as dedicated. They are focused on swimming fast. They're so focused on being a team and reaching their own potential. So I find no difference in the level of training, the level of focus, dedication, commitment, and excitement to swim faster. I guess really the only difference would be maybe the level of athlete that we get, maybe a little different. But we have gotten some amazing athletes over the year, Olympic trial qualifiers, national runner-ups, and different things at nationals. They're training just as hard. So you would not know the difference at all. So sometimes we're recruiting some high-level swimmer, talk about, want to go Division I, want to go Division I. And we try to tell them that you're going to find no difference here as far as commitment, training, and some resources. But you're going to be working hard on the outside, okay? You're going to be working hard on the outside in school and the regimental lifestyle. So it's really been fun. I've really enjoyed it, and I've chosen to stay for all these years. I just finished my 22nd season here when I was only going to stay 3 to 5, and I stayed because I really enjoy the midshipmen here. We've built a really good team over the years, but I really enjoy the most is what we're doing here outside of swimming and what the academy is all about, the kind of the higher purpose. And about 3 years ago, commissioned in the United States Maritime Service, which is, I really have enjoyed this process, but it changes my day too, right? I'm wearing uniform, getting haircuts, signing my shoes, and that kind of stuff. But I really enjoy serving the Merchant Marine Academy, serving the midshipmen here, but also serving, the country in the way that I'm able to do it.
I looked at the success that you guys have had winning the Skyline Conference, both with the men and the women this year, second with the men and at the Metropolitan Championships, and third with the women. Tight battle there with the College of New Jersey and Rowan, or is it Rowan or Rowan? Rowan. So we have a county here in Kentucky. It's spelled the same, but it's pronounced Rowan. Okay, so my apologies to the people at Rowan College for mispronouncing it. I also grew up in Ohio, which down the road from my hometown is Louisville and not Louisville. So I get in trouble for that one all the time here. I've had to learn how to pronounce things properly in Kentucky, but you guys have built some great success, had people qualified to Division III nationals. And I think what you hit on the head right there is something that needs to be echoed amongst club coaches and high school coaches across the United States. Everybody harps on, I got to go D1. I got to go D1. I got to go D1. Look across the spectrum, because if you look at the Division III national championships, I would argue, and I'm going to anger all my Division II coaching buddies when I say this, I would argue that the Division III national championships is deeper and faster than any of the other divisions outside of Division I. And I would very much say that a lot of the mid-major Division I's would struggle against some of the Division III schools that are out there. There's so much talent and so much has been brought at these schools, and they're doing it not for a scholarship, because there's no such thing at the Division III level. Obviously, as a service academy, it's structured a little different with how that works, but at the same time, you're getting kids that are committed to the sport without the scholarship hanging over their head. And I deal with that a little bit at the NAIA level. I've had kids tell me, like, Coach, my senior year, I was just in the water just to hold on to the scholarship, which that disappoints me, because I want them to enjoy it. And I still want them to be focused on it. But at the same time, I get it. They're looking at their future. As for your athletes, we talked about it before we came on the air. You haven't even had graduation yet. My kids have been graduated for 2 weeks. I mean, yours is mid-June, and then the next batch is showing up sometime in July. So it is a 12-month commitment that they are putting in to being not just a student at the Merchant Marine Academy, but to be an athlete as well. One of the things I wanted to ask about that. So yeah, you've got this whole brand new batch that's coming in. Division III has rules on the number of days now. It used to be weeks, but the days that you can train them. When are you generally starting your season, and how do you kind of structure your practices? Obviously, the academies with their classes, that takes precedence with everything. And I'm sure the U.S. Merchant Marine Academy is no different. But talk me through how you're setting up a season, because if they're showing up in July, but you're not putting them in the water until September, that's got to be a crazy time for these kids.
Yeah, the new NCAA format of 114 days coming out, as opposed to 19 weeks. We are looking to see kind of breaking that down and out, and kind of seeing when we can actually start, even if it's a few days here, a few days there, as we kind of get into the season. Typically, we start like normal colleges mid-September. We end in February with championships and nationals in March. So typically what happens is once the school begins, they have training in July. School begins around August 1st or so. Our senior leaders, the leaders on our team, will start, running some voluntary practices. They'll go out for runs. They'll play games. They try to start bonding as a team, but it's completely optional and voluntary. And other people from the campus join in as well. But it's just an opportunity. Number one is for us, is our freshmen to get to know the rest of the team. Is really important. They try to do that in the beginning with whoever is on campus at the time. And then they'll start doing things on their own. The pool's open every day for rec swimming. People will get in the water. People will start going to the weight room. But it's really, there's nothing official during that time period until we get started in usually mid-September. Now, I may adjust that a little bit with these days. We're still working out here at the academy. When can we actually start? Because the NCAA rules say, September 7th, or, after school begins. Well, school begins in end of July, being in August. So how does that play out? But you can't use all your days up because you still have the main part of your season later on. So we're still working those details out, as we are still in the same academic year right now. We're not even looking into next year just yet. So it's definitely unique, but we have a lot of leadership on our team that we expect to kind of gather the team and start getting to know them. Start doing some, hey, I'm going out for a run. Who wants to come run with me? That kind of stuff.
That is the one thing that I wish the NAIA would take from the NCAA. And I have friends who coach Division III at different areas, and they're a little conflicted. A lot of them have been doing it for a long time, so they know their weeks, they know how to plan it out, and now there's this whole days thing. Whereas I have a lot of coaching friends who have been begging this forever, because they knew the moment they put a kid in the water, especially during Thanksgiving break, okay, if I put a kid in the water on Monday, I've just burned an entire week. And it's with the NEI, we still have the same thing with the weeks. We have a 24-week calendar that we can have organized swimming activities. Now, anything that we do that doesn't involve the water doesn't count. So we'll go a whole week of dry land and strength training and stuff, and that doesn't count against our total. But I would kill for days, because there have been so many breaks, especially fall break weekend and stuff. If I let the kids go, okay, we practice 2 days, they're gone on a Wednesday, I burned an entire week. So I that was the one thing that struck me. It's like, my goodness, if they've got X number of days and they're there in July, holy cow, he could be done by December 30th if he's not careful. So
we could,
that's something you got to navigate.
Yeah, probably, we'll probably map out a couple things early on just to kind of get them into the water a little bit, but not really do anything until mid-September. I mean, it's supposed to be 19 weeks, 5-6 days is kind of how you got to that 114. So it's not like you have all these extra days. It just allows you to do them as you wish, as opposed to, for example, you said Thanksgiving week. We never use train at all Thanksgiving week, because I don't want to waste a Monday practice and use a whole week up. So we don't do anything. Plus, school has a big dinner, and there's other things that go on. And it's like, you know what? We'll just see it. We have a meet on Saturday, and then we'll see when they get back the following Monday, And this will allow us to do a little, maybe I want to go Tuesday morning before they leave in the afternoon. And we got to map it all out. I like the 19 weeks. I think this would be better at having more flexibility. But we haven't gone through it yet, really, because we did have it during the COVID year, but we had no meets and stuff. So we were just practicing at all weird times, just to keep it going throughout the year. So we'll see how it plays out. We'll do it once, we'll learn from it, and then make adjustments the following year.
I think one of the aspects that has to be incredibly unique for a service academy such as yourself is the recruiting process. For me, I'm a liberal arts college in Eastern Kentucky. I kind of know my geographic area. I have international students that find us as well. We sometimes will dip out of it. I have a girl coming from South Dakota. I've had kids from California that they end up finding me more than me finding them and anything. When you are going through the recruiting process, I can't imagine you're just getting on a recruiting website and pulling names off and going, hey, this is Commander Sean Tedesco with the Merchant Marine Academy. I'd love to talk to you. And they're like, where? What? How do you guys operate from a recruiting standpoint? Because there's academic standards that have to be met. And if they're not met, it's not worth your time. So talk to me about recruiting athletes to the Merchant Marine Academy.
So, well, I've done many things over the years to do it. You know, back in the day, they didn't have websites. Now they have websites. You can do things. So how we do it now is typically this. We will, I mean, for the most part, we will use SwimCloud. We'll put in athletic parameters, not academic parameters. A lot of kids don't have those parameters yet. They don't have the test scores and stuff yet. So we'll just cast a big net, but then we will send them a big email with basically a letter that has who we are, what we do, links to videos. So anybody that might be interested, even a little bit, they'll dig in. They'll dig into that kind of stuff because they're like, you know what? Let me look at more, especially if they're interested in any service academy. And then we have people just fill out questionnaires. And they fill out questionnaires, and we're trying to stay away from doing those cold calls where we've been hosting. I don't give away all my secrets here, but we've been hosting what we call. So maybe 2 months ago, we emailed our entire database of juniors and said, listen, let's hop on for a 30, 40-minute town hall where I'm going to go over everything we have about the school, about team, about everything. So that when I call you, if you're still interested, one, you've attended a town hall, we kind of elevate you as a recruit. And then when we call you, I don't have to go over all about school again. Now I'm going to start talking to you. Hey, how is that me? Tell me about your club team. Let's get to know each other a little bit. Start building the relationship from there. So we just had a town hall. The first one we had about 40 people on, 50 people or so. It was great. We had a town hall the other day. We had about maybe 15 recruits on there. But then they're elevated. And then we'll make a phone call within a few weeks to kind of catch up and start building the relationship with them as we go. And then obviously as we go, we're learning a little bit more about academics, send us to transcripts, because we got, at the end of the day, it won't work out. We want to know as early as possible. And we know those things now. We've been doing this for a long time. We know what's going to work and not work and who will be on the edge. But if you come to visit, you come to a town hall, they're the recruits we're talking to. We'll send information to others, but we won't pick up the phone unless you have made effort to learn more about the school and learn more about the academy. That's kind of what we're doing now in a nutshell. And we'll also send emails to the coaches who have members on the team now. And I say, hey, listen, so-and-so is here. Do you have anybody on your team that might be interested in learning more about the school? Anybody wants to maybe thinking about the service academy route and kind of just starting the process. What I have learned has not worked over the years is a consistent pipeline from certain teams. When I was at Villanova at UConn, we had like 3 or 4 guys from the same team, on our program, and it kind of keep going back. It doesn't work that way here. It works sometimes, but for the most part, it's just a unique school that it doesn't have that ability to kind of just go down the pipeline all the time.
I think that's the one thing that a lot of young coaches need to understand. By the way, right at the beginning, shout out to SwimCloud and Greg Earhart. I'm probably going to get Greg on the show at some point to talk about how he wants to.
Really.
Oh my goodness. I think he's forgotten more about swimming than I'll ever know. But I think it's important that kids understand that from a recruiting standpoint, that keep your options open. You may never know exactly what you want. I've had so many of when I coach club, they're like, I'm going to go major in accounting. And then they'll take principles accounting 1 and go, I'm an education major now. Or the number of kids that I had that were going to be pre-med that had to take organic chem for the first time and went, exercise science looks like it's going to be a good route. Or I think that keeping an open mind on what you're looking for in terms of the academic side of things is critical in the recruiting process, and listening to all comers. I know for me, I had the privilege of talking to a couple of the service academies. My father obviously was in the United States Navy. My sister enlisted later on. So I talked to some of the academies. I was also looking at Division III schools. I looked at Division I. I settled on Division II. I think I just averaged it at that point. But I found my home, and for a lot of people, they may not know exactly what they're looking for, and a place with great structure, great academics, and I call it job security. In this day and age, you can't really say that too easily, that you can come out of college and you're guaranteed a great opportunity in employment. And I think the academies definitely offer that. And I can't stress that enough to people, that looking at places like the Merchant Marine Academy, like the Coast Guard Academy, I know that's the big rivals and things. I remember I heard about water polo matches between Coast Guard and US MMA. Got a little on the MMA side of things in terms of the activity under the water. I had a friend that attended Kings Point, and he played polo there, so he told me some stories. But I think kids need to definitely keep that open-mindedness. We mentioned it earlier. I thought everybody was coming in with a specific degree mindset, and you're telling me, nope, not the case. But keeping an open mind and looking at where you're going to go academically. And again, you said it right off the bat. It's a great academic institution, so take advantage of that. Moving on from there, coaching wise, obviously coaching is coaching. We all have our own paths to get there. We all structure our practice groups. I know you have a pretty good sized roster. We've talked about that. How are you able to balance the academic schedules with the practice schedules of your athletes? Because I know here, if a professor cancels a class, hey, we're going online today, or hey, just do your test. A kid will say, hey, coach, I want to come to the 2 to 4 practice instead of the 4 to 6 practice because I don't have class. It doesn't quite work that way in an academy. So talk to me about how you're able to balance the academic rigors and expectations with the athletic side of things.
Right. The academic, doing well academically is a higher priority than our success on our swimming team. It's actually in that order. Out of our order of our goals for the year, academic All-American is a higher priority than qualifying for NCAAs and winning our championships. Because when the kids are doing well in school, they will do better in the pool, right? If they're not doing well in school, they're more stressed out. They have to leave practice early. They got to see a teacher. They need extra tutoring. They're stressed. So we really do put an emphasis on doing well, in the classroom. So we do structure practices around the academic day, kind of like what you just said. You have a 2 to 4, 4 to 6. We'll typically have a 3 to 5, 5 to 7 group, and we map it out. Like you probably map your team out and say, here, this is when we're going to train, so that we have good pool space, so that we have it's broken up so people can go to school. Because our class doesn't really end till 4 or 5 o'clock, but some people are done early. They come in at 3 and swim. So we maneuver that anytime. If someone says, hey, coach, I got to see a teacher after school today, can I come to the next group? No problem. Come to the next group. So we obviously are very flexible in that way, but we're also adjusting at all times. Kids need to see a tutor. Kids need to have a huge test the next day that they do well, and they may skip practice completely. They may get out early. So we're constantly adjusting for academics to make sure that they're doing well in school, because school is challenging. I mean, school is probably the hardest thing that goes on here. Harder than the regimen, harder than swimming is the academic program here, especially for the freshman class, because they have a lot on their plate while they're here. But we're constantly adjusting, but we also keep it a priority. But the being team academic All-American of a 3.0 GPA in the team and higher is more of a priority than swimming. The only thing that tops that is having a good culture. So it really goes culture, academics, and then athletics in that order. So that kind of helps remind us too, like, to keep things in perspective. I think the team appreciate that, and also performs better overall because of it.
Culture is the big hot word that is going around the sports world. I won't even say the swimming world. I think just sports in general at the collegiate level, we're constantly talking about building our culture and changing with the generations that are coming through. I've talked about it many times on this podcast about how the adjustments I need to make, I need to adapt with the times. I've been in this game for a long time, and what I could do in the early 2000s, you really can't do as much or be the same way, because you have to adapt with the people coming in. Being at a service academy, I can only imagine the sense of camaraderie that your athletes have in comparison to a small liberal arts school or a Power 5 program, because at the end of the day, whether it's Army, Navy, Merchant Marine Academy, Air Force, Coast Guard, we're going into your students and your athletes are going into a very unique fraternity, and some of them are going to see combat and some of them are going to see conflict, and there's a chance that maybe somebody doesn't come home. And that tightness and that bond that these student athletes that you have the privilege of working with builds such a closeness, because no one will understand what they're going through. And I understand that the swimmers, they're always close. My swimmers hang out all the time. I wish they wouldn't. I wish they had other friends that weren't swimmers, but I can't pick their friends. But to know that there's a chance down the line that maybe one of my teammates isn't coming back home from overseas, I think that draws a very unique cultural aspect to your program that I can't say that I have here at the University of the Cumberlands. And it's one of those where I kind of wish we did. I understand why people bring in service members to do team building exercises, but I don't know that our student athletes will ever truly understand what it means to represent their country in the way that a service academy student athletes do. And I think that's something that is a skill that needs to be taught to the general population. Just the sense of camaraderie and working together towards a common goal, as opposed to picking apart. And I'm not saying you don't have your fair share of drama. I'm sure you get as much of it as the rest of us, but at the end of the day, it is like you said, culture, academics, athletics, and they all have to be firing on all cylinders for those young men and women, because they have to be leaders of industry and leaders in society upon graduation. My hat's off to you for doing that. I grew up in a military-minded household, so yeah, I get it a little bit. I didn't serve, obviously. I would never take credit for that, but I've had so many family members, and I know their pride in serving their country in whatever aspect, whether they were enlisted, whether they were officers. So the fact that you've got young men and women who are making this commitment is hats off to them, and hats off to you and the rest of the Merchant Marine Academy for developing these young leaders. So when we talk about things from a practice standpoint, how are you structuring your groups? I mean, when you're training athletes, we always talk about, well, recruits will do this. Well, how many yards do you do? And how do you break your groups down and things along those lines? But I guess I'm asking the question, how do you break your groups down when you train with them?
We get that question all the time. I mean, it's probably the standard question that we get recruiting wise, athletic related, is how many yards and so forth. Well, first we want to say we basically take a typical individual approach to training. We'll have people who are coming from a strong year-round structured club program. We get 2 weeks off a year. And then we'll have people who, well, some of our sprinters, man, they swim high school only, but they're fast. And they're doing 3,000 yards for 3 months. And that's it. So we have to take an individual approach as far as how much yards we're going to do, what you need to do individually to be successful. So it all starts there. And then we typically have 3 groups throughout the year. We have a sprint group, a stroke group, and then a distance group. And we kind of look at it with those 3 eyes. And then we'll have people moving within those groups all the time. Some of our sprinters will never leave the sprint group. They don't want to do anything else. But we'll have some stroke people who they'll go some distance freestyle a couple days a week, and then they'll do stroke work 4 days a week. I have people moving throughout the year into different groups. Occasionally, we'll have an IM only group or 200 freestyle only group. But for the most part, we're going sprint, stroke, and distance. And then we have to figure out individually what's going to work best for you. Like some breaststrokers can't do breaststroke every day, thousands and thousands of yards. So, okay, then let's do IM more work this day. We'll do breaststroke 3 days a week. We'll do IM training, non-breaststroke 2 days a week, and maneuver it around. We also do taper. It's completely individualized as far as how long they taper for. We have a structure of what we want to do, and then everybody kind of varies from there. I think our shortest taper this year was, 2 days. And I think our longest taper was 4 weeks. And kind of everybody in between, mapping out what has worked best for them in high school, what has worked best for them while they've been here. And then we kind of adjust the next year and so forth. At the end of the day, individually, we need you to swim fast. And if everybody individually swimming fast collectively, we're going to be rocking. And that's what we want on the team.
Yeah, we'll see that a lot as well in terms of the different backgrounds. Like you mentioned, kids will be in the water except for 2 weeks out of the year. And then you've got I hate to pick on them, and I've done it too many times, and I'm a former distance swimmer. So the sprinters that are the 3,000 yards during high school season, and then they won't touch the water again. And I've always been so jealous of them that they could just pick right up where they left off with a little bit of rust, obviously. But I know that we're seeing it more and more, the lack of yardage in a workout, the more of a focus on that individualization in coaching, I think has been incredibly prevalent in how athletes are being developed now. Again, I'm not taking away from what coaches do. I'm not telling people how to coach their athletes, because there's so many ways to get to success. But the individualization at the college level is what we see more and more. And I think that's becoming more critical to success. And we're seeing ridiculously fast times out of people that maybe aren't training 8, 9, 10,000 yards in a workout. So again, I'm an old dog, but I'm still learning new tricks. That's for sure. So I'm excited to see through this podcast and this opportunity. I've learned a lot from a lot of different people and getting different ideas. I had the pleasure of talking with a coach the other day who told me about how he sets up his practice schedule, and he's got a pool situation similar to mine where he's got about 60 kids in a 6-lane, 25-yard pool, and how he's able to navigate that. And at least I'm the aquatics director. I get to say who uses my pool. His pool is controlled by Recreation Sports, so he has to get a little more creative on things. And I'm taking those ideas and I'm picking his brain. I think swim coaching in general is one of the most collaborative environments to work in. Because not that we don't want to beat each other. Like if you and I had a dual meet, of course I want to win. I mean, that's just the nature of our sport, being individualized as swimmers. But at the same time, I think we tend to work more together as coaches and sharing ideas, whether it's about training, about culture, about mental health. I think that's critical in our sport. And the CSCA, again, I'm plugging them because I'm on the board, of course, but at the same time, I think it's important that people hear other coaches talk, and yeah, you may not get it. All the ideas will work for you, but you're going to pull something. And if we can help our athletes become better swimmers and better people, then that's what's critical right now. More than anything else is we're trying to develop people to be the best versions of themselves.
I agree with you. I think if you talk to any coaches, they'll be happy to talk to you about what they do and how they do it, and hope it works for you. And then they're kind of like supporting you, and they want you to do well. Obviously, you go to conference championships. We're on the deck of championships, and I'm friends with almost all those coaches. Now, I want to come out on top. But the other day, I'm marveling at one or two people that they have that are just like lighting it up, right? At champs, and like, man, I'm happy for them. I mean, I want to be where they are, right? But at the end of the day, it's like, it is a nice group of college coaches who are trying to help each other find ways to be successful. Someone who, like you and I, have been doing this for a really long time, if I can find something new to teach, to kind of get myself excited for also, that's always a good thing too. Otherwise, it's just year after year. Like, it's fun to do some different things. This year we did a lot of work with our sprinters, trying to go some straight on freestyle recovery and trying to like come around quicker. But I had a lot of fun trying to get that done. It was something different for me mentally. It took a little convincing for some of our athletes. Most of them, it worked really, really well for them. A couple athletes were not really doing that great, so we kind of went back to how they normally swam. But again, just trying some new stuff, be passionate. I think that passion comes through to them. They get excited. They're excited to do something different than what they've been doing for all these years. And so I'm always trying to find some new things. So when I go to conventions and clinics, I try to pick up one or two things to bring back to the team for them and also for me, to keep my juices flowing and my energy up.
The biggest piece of advice I give to any young coach who comes to me and talks to me about anything from a coaching standpoint is that be open to new ideas. Do not be closed-minded in any way, shape, or form. I was that idiot who was 24, 25 years old, thought he knew everything. I was very fortunate that I had some great mentors and some great club coaches in the state of Illinois who pulled me aside essentially and said, look, you don't know everything, so stop acting like you do. And they were that blunt to me. So it was great. And I appreciated that. I grew up with coaches that were like that, and it was kind of an eye-opener. And again, it may be something where a coach will tell me they do 10 things and I can only use one of them. That's one more tool I had in the tool belt. And couldn't hit the mute button fast enough. But I think it's important that we're evolving with our athletes because they're getting different kinds of training with their club programs. They need to come in here and we need to kind of be on the same page with what they're expecting, but also at the same time expose them to new ideas of, hey, maybe you don't need to do 10 700s in a practice. And our school record holder in the men's mile came in as a freshman. Was like, Coach, when are we going to do like 6 800s? I go, never. I'm a former distance swimmer. I was bored swimming it. Do you think I want to watch that? Come on now. But we got him to come around to a different mindset in terms of his training. He got significantly faster in the 500, the mile, 200 freestyle as well. And I think that's a testament to him to buy into what we wanted to accomplish. But it's also, I'm not going to pat myself on the back, but I want to say, look, I've learned to adapt my training to the athletes that, okay, maybe this kid doesn't need to go 6 800s or whatever, but he's going to need some of it just for his own mental state. And also with, you mentioned it, we're on a pool deck. The biggest thing I get in my evaluation every year is the thing comes back is, well, when coach goes to nationals, he spends half the time talking to other coaches. Well, right. I haven't seen my friends in over a year, but I had never missed a single race. I'm still watching you guys. I'm still working with you. But when you're warming up, I'll get your splits, I'll get your paces, but I'm going to talk to so-and-so from such and such university that's standing next to me because he's doing the same thing for his athletes. And I think there's a camaraderie there on top of the competitiveness. And the one thing I found, the conversations have shifted a lot more on the pool deck from what we're doing in terms of with the athletes and the training standpoint to how we're managing the mental health side of things for our athletes and how we're handling mental health from a coaching standpoint. I think that has been a huge thing that has shifted since the pandemic. And there was just an article posted on SwimSwam that said, title of it, research study explores NCAA Division I coaches leaving the profession. No kidding. I can tell you, you didn't need to do a research study. I can give you all the reasons as to why. The pay has gone down. We're expected to do more with less, and balancing work-life relationships is incredibly difficult. And not to mention our relationships with the athletes are changing. So I think we as coaches tend to lean on one another because unfortunately, even our spouses, even if they were in the sport, can never truly relate to what we're going through from a mental health standpoint. I've struggled with it. My friends have struggled with it. And I'm sure you've run into coaches as well who have said, I don't know how much more I can keep doing this. And which is unfortunate because then we lose a lot of great coaches from the sport. And I'm a big person on mentorship. I want to pay it forward as much as I can to the younger generation because I'm going to be gone at some point, and I need to make sure that the next class of coaches comes through has a better understanding of what they need to be successful. So
one of the reasons I've always stayed at the Division III level, not only I enjoy working here, but also I have in Division III, the season ends. It ends, and that's it. You can have a couple of meetings to do something, but there's no more. You get your life back for 6 months, basically. And so you can go hard and go all in on the season. But then out of season, obviously there's a lot to do, but you get a little more bounds there in the off season. And I know some of the big D1 schools, I mean, the day after club season ends, club begins, right? Like their college club team begins and it just starts again. That's one reason why I never really went the route of club coaching as well. I think it's just 24/7, 365. And I love the college season. I enjoy doing it. I also like when it's over. It's nice when it's over. I miss all the kids, but it's I'm going to my kids' soccer games and I'm picking them up from the birthday parties, that kind of stuff that I don't want to say missed out on, that I was coaching instead, because I do enjoy. I think if I wasn't coaching, I'd be bored also. So I love the season. I love getting ramped up for big meets, and I love trying to get other people successful. But then also when it's over, hopefully it's over in March and not February. And come April, when all the paperwork is done, I'm like, all right, I can breathe a little bit more and kind of enjoy other things that I didn't get to enjoy throughout the year. And I like that. Like that part of it.
I know in the NEIA we have a little bit different rule structure. So if we have time postseason, we can do dry land. If you have extra weeks left over, you can use those in the water. So my season generally ends middle to late April. After our nationals are in March, then we've got our little postseason stuff. But over the summertime, I can decompress. I can go into the office whenever I want to. I'm not beholden to a specific schedule. I can do things like a podcast and not worry about my boss making sure that I clock in. But it also gives me a lot of opportunities from a facility side to assess what needs we have, make sure we get ready for the fall. We don't open to the public, so I don't have to worry about anything there. I can get cleaning done at a leisurely pace as opposed to breakneck where I have to get things done because the next group is coming in. But it also gives me that balance that I get the opportunity to research what I'm going to do for the upcoming season, but take a look back in reflection on this past season. And from that point, see what worked, what didn't work, what we're going to change, what adjustments we're going to make, and then also recharge. Like these coaches that go, and I coached club for several years before I got into the college ranks. I don't know how they can go from an entire Division I season to now you're doing your club season and then you're starting, it's an endless cycle. Like, how do you recharge from that? Like for me, I need the downtime. I need to get excited I know I'm not there yet for next year because I'm literally finishing up recruiting. I got a commitment today that I gotta do all the paperwork for and make sure we can get them through with admissions and everything as a transfer. But again, it comes down to having that opportunity to take a step back, and I can take a week vacation and nobody's going to look twice in my office to see if I'm doing any work or anything. My boss also knows that I'm going to work on my laptop on vacation because I can't really separate those two. So
I think that's really, really important for the long-term coaches to have that break. Anybody can do anything for a few years in a row. Not a problem. But when you're there 15, 20, you'll make it a career. I think really having that downtime, I'm only speaking my own experience, has been critical. Because there's been times where, and maybe 5, 6 years ago, I'm like, man, I don't know if I can go through another season. But then you get better kids in, you change some things, you pick out a couple things that are exciting to you to do this year, and that kind of gets the juices going. It's never the season. It's always like, I feel like leading into the season sometimes. Like, I'm like a week away from starting. Yep. But I haven't had that feeling in like 5 years. Now I'm like, I'm a week out going, I wish we could start today, and you can't. And so that downtime, I think, is really important for the longevity of coaches, not necessarily the short-term 5-year thing. Like someone wants to coach 20, 30 years. I can't stress it enough how important that is.
I know for me, the 2 years of the pandemic with lockdowns, social distancing, I was going at 1,000 miles an hour with no break, and coming out of it this year. And I've said it, I think I said it on another podcast, this was probably my worst year as a coach. And it's because I never gave myself the opportunity to decompress fully. And I know the athletes saw it. Several of them commented like, Coach, you seem like you've got a lot of weight on you. And I'm like, oh, no, I'm fine. And I'm lying through my teeth to them. And I always tell all my athletes, I'll never, and my father used to say, when you say I'm fine, fine is an acronym. Freaked out, insecure, neurotic, and emotional. And honestly, I was all of those things, but I didn't want to portray it to the kids, but they could see right through it. And I tell my athletes, I'm like, I'll never lie to you. I may not tell you the whole truth. Well, when they asked me how I'm doing, I was lying through my teeth because I didn't want to project what I was going through onto them, but I knew that they could see it. And I came more of a realization as the season ended on it. And I think that's something that this summer, this podcast has been incredibly therapeutic for me because I talk to coaches and we talk swimming. Like, we don't do that all the time anyway, but hearing that I'm not alone, that people have had similar struggles or similar situations, and to realize, okay, there is the network out there that I can talk to. The convention was phenomenal. They had people talking about mental health there and how to manage it. So that's something that I need to look at going forward for sure. And just so I can stay in this.
Yeah, well, this podcast that you're doing, it might be what you consider like a little bit of a side hustle kind of. It's not really. It's actually, as of right now, it pertains to your job, and you're learning a tremendous amount of just talking with other coaches, even just talking with you for this time that we have. I can pick up on things that you're excited about, and I'm starting to get excited about that. Like, obviously, you talk to different coaches with different backgrounds and philosophies, and you're gonna learn a tremendous amount more than you thought when you probably started this podcast. So it is kind of directly related to what you're doing. Hopefully it'll make you a better coach out of it in the long run.
I think that's the big goal for me, is that there have been some things just talking with coaches about how they operate and how they have worked with their athletes. And I think it's opened my eyes to a lot of things that I need to change about myself that I kind of already knew about, but it's also given me a little more perspective and a little more clarity. So if it makes me a better coach in the long run, then that means my athletes are going to be better in the water and in the classroom and as leaders on campus, then this thing is paying dividends without ever paying me a dime. And that's the first question I got asked, was like, well, how much do you make per episode? I go, right now, not a dime. So don't ask me those questions. Like, you didn't hear any ads at the beginning of this episode, so that means nothing. So I just want people to understand that this was done purely for fun, and because I have such a passion and a love for the sport, and I'm really not qualified to do anything else. That's pretty much where I stand on it. So, well, Coach, we have our final segment. We call it 650s on the top. I'm going to give you two things, this or that. There's 6 total items. Are you ready?
Yes.
Would you rather have a trip to Antarctica or take a trip to Tahiti?
Antarctica.
I love that answer. Do you prefer carpet floors or wooden floors?
Wood floor.
You are a triathlete. You have done Ironmans. I'm going to take swimming out of the equation. Would you consider yourself a runner or a cyclist?
Runner.
See, I'm a cyclist. My knees just can't. And I'm in Eastern Kentucky, so all we do is climb.
getting harder to run. That's a different question. Getting harder to run, but I'm a better runner than cyclist.
Very much so. If you had your choice with the NCAA Division III National Championships, what would you rather add? The 50s of stroke or the 800 medley relay?
50s of stroke.
I can't get anybody to bite on that 800 medley question when I give it.
Well, I was a 200 breaststroker. I could not imagine doing another 200 breaststroke at championships, no matter what day it was.
See, I was a 2 flyer, 2 backstroker. So either way, I spent most of it underwater. If you were going out for an evening, would you rather go to a rock concert or a jazz club?
Let's talk about. I'm not sure. Maybe a rock concert.
Okay.
I like to sit back and chill and just kind of like go to a jazz concert. I would like to do that too. I like to do both of those. That's a tough one.
All right. You are a graduate of the University of Connecticut, so you spent some time in the great state. Which do you prefer, lobster rolls or the steamed cheeseburger that Connecticut is famous for?
Neither, believe it or not. So even though I was up there, I'm a very simple eater. I prefer to have my South Jersey, Philadelphia food like cheesesteaks, pretzels, tailored ham, that kind of thing, bagels, and that kind of stuff. Than those. So
okay,
you had people from New England area and people from like the New York, Connecticut, Southern Connecticut area, and I was kind of like thrown in by myself, like in the middle.
I have been to Philadelphia. My sons and I went into the Army Navy game several years ago at Lincoln Financial Field. So of course I had never been to the city of brotherly love. So of course everybody says, well, you got to go get a cheese with the steak. So I went to Geno's. So that's where we went to eat. So and had a great time with it. But I when I was doing the research, I'm like, oh, he went to UConn. What great food is in Connecticut? And I went, okay, lobster roll. Okay, I kind of knew that. My sister lives up in Brunswick, Maine. Kind of got that. The steamed cheeseburger. I'm like, what is?
I've only had that on a couple of occasions because you remember, we're poor college kids. We basically ate on campus, and then we ordered out. We ordered pizza and wings. That was basically occasionally did something different, but basically that was kind of. So I've only had it a few times. Definitely not that kind of guy.
When I was in college, they opened this is how old I am. They finally opened a Papa John's in my town where we were at school, and you could get a $5 one-topping pizza. Yep. So that was a common staple. And we were where I lived was across the street from the Buffalo Wild Wings. Okay. We used to go over on Tuesday nights for 20-cent wing nights. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, that used to be a thing. So you went over there with $2, you got 10 wings. It was or 12 wings. You were game, set, and match. It was best ever.
Campus called Wings Express, and like a Tuesday or Wednesday, they always had all you could eat wings for like $5, and it was like, you came after practice. I mean, they eventually stopped doing it because we would go in there and just house them. Then they try to like slow you down. They come out with like 2 buckets, and they're like, and then it took like 20 minutes to get the next one. You're like already ordering the next one. Like you're like,
send another round, ladies and gentlemen.
They ended that. And now they're not in business, so that's probably.
I think I'm the cause for every Family Value video store to go out of business because of not returning tapes. And if they had something like the $5 unlimited all-you-can-eat wings, my team would have shut a store down in one night. And I'm not just talking about the men. Our women would go in and murder about 20 each on their own just for fun and just to prove they could hang with the guys. And that was terrifying. So
I think all swimmers know after practice just how hungry, not just your belly, like how hungry your whole body is. Yeah. More than I feel like, and I've done a lot of other sports, more than any of those sports. And you come out of swim practice, like your body is thriving for some food. It's just like it needs it so bad. So those wings, I mean, you're just wolfing them down.
And swimmers will always go for the very flavor-rich foods and spicy foods for the simple fact that we've literally been washing our mouths with chlorine for 2 hours, and all we can taste is the lactic acid we produced. So we needed something with some flavor. Like if you gave me you put a salad in front of me, I'd look at it and go, you better throw some hot sauce on this because I'm not going to taste any. This will taste literally like paper. It's not. You can put all the dressing in the world, but if there's nothing with some heat on it, I'm not tasting it because that chlorine has literally just burned the taste buds off of me. So.
Everything. Sitting here talking about this, I'm thinking about my college days. I can see my teammates with me sitting there or a late night ordering pizza and like different things, because you have dinner and then like an hour later, you're hungry. You're like, oh, let's get some wings, get some pizza, let's get some whatever else we wanted to order.
We would hit the cafeteria for dinner, and then about 2.5 hours later, we were either going to B-Dubs, we were ordering pizzas from Papa John's, or we were making, if we felt like it, we made the walk down to Taco Bell, and you'd hear people yell through the hallways, "Border run, we're making a run to the border," and because that was the slogan back in the day. So
awesome.
Well, Coach, I want to thank you so very much for being on the show. I really appreciate you taking the time, and I hope that when people hear about this, they take a little bit more of an interest and a little more research into the Merchant Marine Academy. I think it's an incredible opportunity for student athletes and students in general. Even if you don't want to swim in college, even if you're not sure if that's what you want to do, I think the service academies create great opportunities for young men and women in all walks of life. And it has been a pleasure catching up with you again. And you guys can follow them on Instagram. And of course, I don't have that up right. It's USMA Swim Dive, correct?
_swim dive.
_swim dive. My apologies. So you follow them on Instagram at USMMA _swim dive on Instagram. And we'll try to get you back on the show down the line, Coach.
Yeah, I appreciate having me. It's always fun to talk to you. And we talked a couple times before in the past. Also, it's always nice to talk about the Merchant Marine Academy, and thankful to be here. And I appreciate you having me on today.